Hi everyone, thanks for stopping by my video. So my name is Larissa and I'm a PhD student at Northern Arizona University. And in this presentation, we're going to talk about lexical-grammatical complexity features across registers in L2 writing. So in 2011, Biber, Gray, and Pum Pum, they published this paper in which they challenged the notion that complexity should be measured by the use of causal subordination, because in their research, they found that actually clausal subordination, so verb complement clauses and adverbial clauses, are more frequent in conversation than in academic writing. And what they found is that academic writing has way more elaboration in the noun phrase, so the use of attributive adjectives and noun-noun sequences. So they suggest that actually we should be measuring complexity by looking at the noun phrase. Since then, several studies have looked at development in L1 and L2 writing using these measures. And these studies, they show that students at higher levels, they are using more elaboration in the noun phrase. But in this presentation, what I actually wanted to see is how these complexity features, they vary across registers, academic registers. So I have three research questions. So to what extent does the use of grammatical complexity features vary across register? How does the lexical choices vary across register? And what is the function of these grammatical and lexical features in each register? So here in this presentation, I'll focus on two of these research questions, so the lexical and the function. And if you want to see the complete results, I'll leave the link at the end so you can download the whole presentation. So for the lexical grammatical features, because I wanted to focus on the lexical choices, I decided to focus on a limited number of grammatical features. So I have two causal, two phrasal, and one intermediate features. And in order to investigate this, I need a corpus, of course. So I'm using the Brazilian Academic Written English Corpus, which is a corpus that contains texts from Brazilian students who did 2 years of their undergrad in Brazil and then went to the UK to do a year or more of their undergrad. And this corpus was classified using the same categories as the Bowie corpus. So it has 13 genre families, but in this case, I'm using the registers that had more texts. So I'm looking at case study, critique, essay, and explanations. And in total, I have 177 texts written by 107 students. So each student could contribute up to 4 texts to the corpus. And for the analysis, I identified the features using the Biber tagger, and that the frequency counts were normed by 1,000. And then I wrote some Python scripts in order to extract the most frequent lexical choices for each feature across register. So for the results, and again, I'll focus here on the lexical choices students made. So for the phrasal features, I looked at attributive adjectives and pre-modifying nouns. And we can see that actually attributive adjectives are more frequent than pre-modifying nouns across all registers. And we don't see a big difference in the mean frequency of these features across registers. But what I'm interested in is how they use them across registers. So here we have a critique in which students have to evaluate a wind farm. And in this case, we can see in bold are the attributive adjectives. And we see a lot of attributive adjectives that are associated with evaluation. So for example, large quantity, large wind, higher investment, or low cost. So students are used these evaluative attributive adjectives in order to show their evaluation of this wind farm project. And on the other hand, if we look at the noun-noun sequences, we have a lot of repetition. So we have wind energy, wind farms, wind turbines. And in this case, students are using the noun-noun sequences in order to show that they know the topic, but they end up using a lot of repetition as a cohesive device and also to keep inside the topic, but maybe they don't have enough knowledge of the terminology in their fields yet. So that's why we see repetition. And if we look at essays, so at different registers but the same feature, we actually see that the attributive adjectives are used in a different way. We have some evaluative, so better quality, but most of them relate to characterizing the noun. So we giving more details about this area, so urban green areas, environmental urban design. So it's a different use of this feature across these registers. So for the relative clauses, I'm going to show you the most frequent nouns that control relative clauses across registers. And we can see that actually factor is the most frequent noun across almost all registers with the exception of explanation, where process is the most frequent noun controlling a relative clause. And I want to show you some examples to explain that. So in explanation, students have to show that they understand something that's happening. So we can relate this to, for example, a laboratory report. But in laboratory reports, the student is part of the procedure. And in the case of explanations, they need to show that they understand the procedure. So that's why we see so many processes being controlling this relative clauses. So for example, in the first excerpt, there is an ecological process that was thought to be the cause of adaptive radiation. So the student is showing that he understands the different possibilities here. And then for causal features, I looked at verb complement clauses and adverbial clauses. And again, I'm going to start by showing you the most common verbs controlling verb complement clauses. So we can see that overall, the most frequent verb controlling a verb complement clause is to be. But if we look at essay, we actually have show as the most frequent verb complement clause, and we also have some communicative verbs being very frequent in essays, for example, argue, conclude, and indicate. So let's take a look at the examples. So here I have an explanation and a critique, and we can see in these two excerpts that actually verb complement clauses controlled by be are used as stance devices, so students are showing their opinion without actually putting them forward, without saying, I think this. So they are saying another shortcoming is that the end product makes it harder to identify. So it's a way to show stance. But if we look at essay, the reason why show is so popular in essay, it's because it's being used in two ways. So first, if we look at the second example, we can see that it's referring to a figure. So essays are the registers that have more figures, tables, and visual elements. So students use show to refer to these visual elements. But the other thing that happens, and it relates to the communicative verbs, is that students say this researcher shows, other studies suggest. So they are using this show and the communicative verbs in order to strengthen their arguments, because the goal of an essay is to make a point. It's an argumentative essay. And this is the adverbial clauses. So again, I'm showing you the features that control these adverbial clauses. We can see that the most frequent overall is because, but because is not frequent in case studies. And I'll show you some excerpts while I explain why this is happening. So in essay, we can see that because is used as a form to construct the argument. So in this example, the orthostatic hypotension in particular is clinically relevant because it may indicate a more serious disorder. So other studies looking at learner data have also found that because is the most common use of adverbial clauses. But if we look at these other examples as case studies, so we have one case study in the physical science and one case study in life science. And if we look at this case study in physical science, we can see that so is being used as an ordering device. So in this case, the student is reporting on a building, a construction, and then he's giving the different stages of this construction and the solutions for that. So is being used as an ordering device, while in life sciences, we have if, because one of the points of a case study in life science is to show that the student understands the different course of treatments that he could give to this patient. So hemodialysis can be done if patient's renal function is deteriorating or compromised. So the student is showing that he actually considered two options of treatment. So what can I tell you about these features that I investigated for each register? So critiques, the purpose of this register is to evaluate. And the students are doing this by using attributive adjectives and verb complement clauses controlled by verb to be. And we can see a use of pre-modified nouns as a cohesive device in critiques. And in case study, one of the characteristic features is the use of conditional subordinate clauses used to express other possible treatments, and so as introducing subordinate clauses that are used as ordering. And in essays, we have these verb complement clauses controlled by communicative verbs being used to strengthen students' arguments. And the student not always use specific citations. Sometimes it's just a broad example like researchers or studies without giving a specific reference. And explanations, we also have the use of so, but it is used to introduce further details about the topic being explained, so not as an ordering device. So in conclusion, what I find here is that in complexity studies, we always need to take into account the register being investigated, because sometimes the results of the development being found, it actually relates to the different registers being investigated. And also the study shows that the lexical choices associated with these grammatical features are important, because if I was looking at just the mean frequency of the use of these grammatical features, I wouldn't see so much difference and I couldn't explain these register differences. So thank you, and if you have any questions, feel free to send me a message either on Twitter or on my email. And if you want to download a full version of this presentation with the mean frequency for each register, you can go to this website and you can also post your questions there. So thanks for watching.